Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something I've been really keen to explore, the Green New Deal.
Yeah, specifically looking at it through the lens of this, pretty fascinating and definitely sharply critical analysis we found.
Exactly. It covers its, well, surprising trip to a vote in the U.S. Senate and just the huge reactions it stirred up.
Right. So our mission today really is to pull out the key insights from this particular analysis
Yeah, look at the political moves involved, the strategies.
and lay out some of the, well, pretty dramatic arguments that were flying around.
We want to help you make sense of not just the what happened, but maybe the why.
Hmm.
Why all the fuss?
And just as a little teaser, the source material gets into this incredible image involving Ronald Reagan.
Oh, yeah, riding a velociraptor.
Riding a velociraptor, firing an Uzi, yeah, is something else. And it connects, surprisingly, to this whole debate.
Okay, so let's definitely unpack that later. But first,
Let's start with the vote itself.
right, the Senate vote, because the outcome, just looking at the numbers, was, well, frankly astonishing.
It really was. The vote on the Green New Deal resolution finished 57-0.
Zero yay votes. It's hard to get your head around sometimes.
And that's the key number, but not the whole story. Because while 57 senators voted against it,
43 senators voted present.
exactly, 43 present votes. And the analysis we're looking at argues this wasn't just, random. It points to some serious political maneuvering.
Okay, so let's dig into that. The source says the Republican majority, Mitch McConnell leading them, deliberately forced this vote. Why? What was the strategy there, according to the analysis,
Yeah.
beyond just getting a win on the board?
Well, the analysis suggests the aim was very much about shaping public perception. It was about putting the Democrats on the record, forcing them into a position.
And on the flip side, what about the Democrats' strategy?
Well, according to this analysis, someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez apparently advised senators to vote present.
Present. Okay, why?
The thinking described in the commentary was basically to avoid recording actual numbers against it from their own side, to kind of muddy the waters on how much internal opposition there might actually be.
Interesting. And then there's the procedural reality, right?
Yeah.
The filibuster rule meant it needed 60 yay votes just to move forward.
Exactly. 60 votes. So was it ever realistically going to pass at that stage?
Doesn't sound like it.
Not really, no. The analysis points out only 47 Democrats even showed up for the vote.
And out of those 47, only 43 voted present.
Right. Which means 4 Democrats who were there didn't vote present. They didn't vote at all.
So the analysis reads into that.
Yeah, the commentary sort of implies or interprets that as maybe those 4 would have actually voted no if it had been like a binding vote with real consequences.
So the source basically paints this picture of a vote that had no teeth, no real legislative power at that moment.
Correct. It was political theater, essentially, according to this view, all about the messaging and the optics.
Which leads us nicely into the broader landscape and the criticisms that the analysis highlights. Because this focus on optics really helps explain why the content of the Green New Deal became such a lightning rod.
Absolutely. The debate was already raging, and the analysis mentions that even Democrats felt they needed more time, perhaps, to tweak it, refine it,
To make it more digestible for the American public, is the phrase used.
which kind of hints that they knew it was maybe a bit much, or at least perceived that way.
And it wasn't just political opponents, right? The analysis makes a big deal about opposition from unions.
Yeah, that's a key point in the source. The AFL-CIO, a huge labor federation, actually came out against the Green New Deal.
Which the analysis presents as pretty significant given, typical political alignments. It raises questions about how broad the support really was.
Definitely. And this feeds into the source's main critique of the whole thing, the motivation behind it.
Right. The analysis argues pretty bluntly that it's not really about helping the environment or helping downtrodden people,
Instead, the source claims it's all about government control and manipulation.
driven by optics and what it calls gerrymandering on both sides. Strong words.
Very strong. And that framing really sets up the source's dive into what was actually in the Green New Deal proposal itself.
Because the argument is it went way beyond just climate change.
Oh, absolutely. The analysis stresses that it tried to tackle this huge range of other societal issues, linking them all back to climate change.
Yeah, the source quotes the text saying climate change has exacerbated systematic racial, regional, social, environmental, and economic injustices.
And then it lists them out. The specific groups the bill apparently mentions as being disproportionately affected. That's a long list.
It really is.
Uh-huh.
Let me see. Indigenous peoples, communities of color, migrant communities, deindustrialized communities, depopulated rural communities, the poor, low-income, workers, women, the elderly, the unhoused, people with disabilities, and youth.
Wow. I
Uh,
mean, it's incredibly broad. And you can tell the analysis found this scope, well, problematic.
Problematic is putting it mildly. The source uses language like absolutely ludicrous, absolutely absurd,
Calls it the most insane 12-page bill.
and even compares it quite dramatically to a kindergartner just rewrote the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah, it pulls no punches. The commentary clearly felt the proposal was just wildly overreaching.
And it lists specific things it calls crazy lunatic ideas, supposedly tied to the Green New Deal.
Like free college, free healthcare.
And this term the source uses, identitarianism, basically focusing policy on specific group identities.
Right. And the conclusion drawn in the analysis is pretty stark. That most Americans, most representatives, even major unions, just aren't on board with this kind of super expansive agenda.
Which brings us finally to Senator Mike Lee
Ah, yes, the presentation.
and his unique way of making his critique, using, as the source puts it, very interesting PowerPoint presentations and images.
Very interesting is one way to put it. And this is where the Reagan image comes roaring back in.
Describe it again because it's just
Right.
memorable.
Okay, so the analysis describes it in detail. You've got Ronald Reagan. He's riding a velociraptor.
Okay.
There's a rocket launcher strapped to the raptor's back. Reagan is firing an automatic weapon. There's sort of a Cold War backdrop, a torn American flag.
It's pure 80s action movie meets political commentary meets dinosaurs.
Exactly. And Senator Lee's point, his analogy was this:
That image, he said.
has as much to do with overcoming communism in the 20th century as the Green New Deal has to do with overcoming climate change in the 21st.
Wow. Okay, so basically calling the Green New Deal completely irrelevant or nonsensical for its stated purpose.
Pretty much. He called it radical, extreme, mostly ridiculous, containing not a single serious idea. That was his take.
And he picked out specific goals attributed to the plan's authors.
Yeah, the analysis highlights two that Lee focused on. One was the supposed goal of elimination of airplanes.
Right, which, immediately raises practical questions, like Lee apparently asked,
Yeah.
how do you travel in, say, Alaska in winter? No
Yeah.
planes.
And Lee, sticking with the sort of absurd tone, offered his own solution.
Tauntauns.
Tauntauns, described wonderfully as reptomammals native to the ice planet of Hoth.
From Star Wars, of course.
Of course. And Lee apparently pointed out they're carbon neutral and, bonus, fully recyclable and usable for their warmth.
Okay, so he was definitely leaning into the satire there.
Yeah.
How did the analysis react to Lee's whole performance?
Oh, enthusiastically. The source called it pure gold, hilarious, absolutely brilliant,
Why brilliant?
because in the source's view, it perfectly matched the perceived absurdity of the Green New Deal itself. It fought fire with fire using humor and striking visuals.
And the analysis felt this approach actually connected with people.
Yeah, it argued this kind of thing resonated because, quote, the majority people are not for more government and more control.
And the source contrasted this public resonance with, say, some media coverage.
Right. It specifically mentioned the New York Times, for example, suggesting that outlet portrayed people as actually liking the Green New Deal. The source clearly disagreed with that take.
So it really highlights that gap between maybe elite or media opinion and what the source sees as broader public sentiment, especially when faced with these kinds of critiques.
Exactly. It shows how effective, sometimes, a really out there, humorous critique can be in cutting through complex policy talk.
So wrapping this up, this whole deep dive into the source material really throws a spotlight on that tension, doesn't it? Between these huge, ambitious policy ideas and how practical or even serious they seem to people.
And the massive role that politics, messaging, and optics play in how these things are debated and perceived.
Yeah, the analysis ends by kind of acknowledging, okay, maybe some new tech like maglev trains, that could be a real thing.
But it's the bundling of those ideas with everything else, all the social justice aims, the free college, etc., that in the source's very critical view makes it laughable crap or identitarianism.
So the final advice from the analysis is pretty straightforward.
Read it for yourselves, read the actual proposal, and you can make your own decisions.
Which is always good advice. It leaves us with a question, maybe for you, the listener, to think about.
Yeah. What does all this tell us about how we debate these really big, potentially transformative proposals in society? Especially when the messaging, the spin, and the actual substance seem to be pulling in such different directions. How do we navigate that?